Welcome to the show on this Monday. It is the 21st of December. I have got a lot on the agenda today, that is for sure. I've got two really great guests that are going to be in studio with us today, and so I want to get right to it. First, let me tell you that the second half of the show we'll be talking with Senate Majority Leader Mark Schessler. He's from the 9th District, the Ritzville area, and we've got quite a few questions to ask him about the 2016 legislative session that starts January 11th, so very close to that. But in the meantime, we're going to fill our first half hour with an interesting conversation. I'm certain it will be. Jeff Morrow's in the studio with us. He is the Tri-City Herald sports editor. That is until this Saturday. Jeff, how could you make this decision? I mean, was that a hard decision to like hang up going there every day?
You know, I've 30 years is a long time doing something, and I was the sports editor for 19 years of those. It was time. It was time. It's a tough business, as you well know, in the TV business and the radio business. And so I just felt that it was the right time to move on. And I don't really have anything planned. I'm on the YMCA board. Still, I'll stay there. I'm on the Tri-City Sports Council. I'll still do that, and I think I'll probably freelance a little for help the Herald out there. So yeah, it was ready.
You were ready?
I was ready.
All right. So I want to know. This is like the question, the most important question I'm curious about. Okay. Over the years, you have interviewed, you have been around a lot of people who would be sports stars locally or even regionally, nationally. So I'm kind of curious as to people that have stuck out to you that are really great human beings that have nothing to do with their athletic ability, just good people. Tell me some of those.
Well, I thought about this when you asked me about this question.
Yeah.
Locally, I'll never, forget guys like Mike Lundgren, who bought the Tri-City Chinook CBA basketball team. Probably the most fun I've ever had working at the job is those 4 seasons that I covered the Chinook. And that team was going to go bye-bye unless Mike stepped in after that first season, and he bought it. And we had at least 3 more years of fun doing that. Great guy. It was really, he wasn't getting rich off it, let's just say that.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Minor league sports is not a good thing. Another one is Gary Crutchfield, believe it or not, at the city of Pasco. He spearheaded the drive to build the baseball stadium out. I remember when there was nothing out there. There was nothing but sagebrush. We had a press conference out there in nothing but sagebrush to show where the field was going to be. There was no houses out there. There were no businesses on Road 68. Once that stadium got built, all of a sudden everything else followed. And so, it took Gary Crutchfield and the city of Pasco to step up and build that thing. I remember Robert Young calling me about a week before they made that decision. He says, if they don't do it, I've got a spot over by the Richland Y area that I own. That's where that baseball stadium's going to go.
Wow, so you're very impressed with like visionaries.
Yes.
These people, if we called Mike Lundgren a golf semi-pro, he'd probably be thrilled at that.
Yes.
But I mean, I don't know that Gary Crutchfield has any athletic ability, but those are the people that you pick out. That's really interesting, Jeff.
Because what they've done, it continues on for people. It's a quality of life thing as far as I'm concerned in this community. So that's why I really liked it.
Yeah. All right. I like those two. Those are great, and I would definitely agree with that. I want to hear some athletes, though. You must have met some people who were just like exceptional human beings.
Oh yes, I've been lucky in my job to meet a number of professional athletes that were really impressive. I got to sit down in the dugout with Edgar Martinez, really nice guy. Rayford Johnson, an Olympic athlete. Kelly Blair from Prosser. Has always been a great person, so people like that, unlimited numbers of high school kids who've gone on to do great things in their life. And maybe one of the things of concerning me being in the game too long, it was I started interviewing kids that I covered in sports.
Oh boy! Wow.
But it was
Kids
cool.
with
There
kids.
was a lot of them, and yeah, all of a sudden you just realize, holy cow, I've been around for a long time.
Yeah. What do you feel about Hope Solo?
It's an interesting question.
Yeah.
Hope, I covered a lot during her struggles, to make the U.S. Olympic team. She was I think it was the Athens Olympics, where she had given up her dream and was playing in Europe. And she and I talked about it, and they wanted her to come down to Athens to be a substitute or an alternate, and she wasn't going to do it. She thought that they were jerking her around, which maybe they were, but they finally convinced her to come down, and so it's really been interesting to watch her rise through the ranks. And I actually, when she had the big fallout with the coach, where he benched her before the Brazil game, and she kind of blew up, I agreed 100% what she did there, because if it was a guy who had done that, nobody would have thought different of it. And she just got blackballed by her own teammates. In recent years she's had some troubles, and because of how everybody wants a piece of her media-wise, it's really tough to get a hold of her. I can call her grandmother anytime in Richland, and she will talk to me. But Hope's having a tough time with the media. So that's I haven't talked to her in a few years. So.
Well, when you do, tell her or suggest to her that she get herself a really good PR firm.
Yes.
Because I think there's some things that she could do, that she could mediate some of this stuff, but she appears to act on her own a lot, and sometimes we are our own worst enemy.
You are correct.
So an advocate might be good for her.
Very correct.
Yeah. Looking over this 30 years, it's really hard to, I think, look back and remember. Some people are really good at this, and others are not. What are some stories that you are most proud of?
Always a high school feature. Just letting people know about this kid and how good he or she was, not just on the field, but in their community and what they've been doing. Their academics-wise, they've done well. Those are always good. There's so many of them. It's hard to mention one. But the one thing that I was thinking about was back in 1999, and I know we did it a year early, but I decided to do a project called the Top 100 Mid-Columbia Sports Stories of the Century. Oh. And I started this project in March of that year, and I knew a lot of people around the area, all the old timers, and I gave them a list, and I asked them to add to that list. And once we got all that all that stuff back in June, I sent out packets for everybody to vote, and then I got the votes back. I tabulated it. I didn't let anybody else see it. And then I think 100 days from the end of the year is usually like September 26th or something like that. Anyway, I told my staff what we were going to do, and they all looked at me and wanted to throw things at me. And I wouldn't let them know exactly what they were going to do after, past the one story I assigned them. And they were mad at me, but they did them. And we ran a story a day for the final 100 days of that year. And it really built up its own momentum. People were excited about it. I had people telling me that they were mad at me because they went to Hawaii on their trip, and they usually canceled the paper for the week or two that they were gone, but they couldn't because they needed to see what the next story was. Yeah. And the staffers got really excited about it too. They were like, oh, what's going to be number one? I'm not going to tell you. And so I saved that for me. It ended up being Ray Mansfield of Kennewick High School, who played for the Pittsburgh Steelers and Super Bowls. But it was really interesting as the story, as we got on, the stories just got bigger and bigger. It was pretty fun.
That is cool.
Yeah.
That is cool. That is a big, big, big project.
Right.
Yes. Okay. If you've got a question for Jeff, or you want to make a comment, or keep it clean, though, our phone number 547-8726. So, talking about high school sports and high school kids, I mean, the paper has always been such a great source. I know that, radio does some games, play-by-play, and television has been involved in high school sports as well. But really, the foundation, the backbone is right there in the newspaper with a lot of the details. How do you think, as you view it, how do you think high school sports has changed in the past 30 years? I mean, it has changed. First of all, girls are participating.
When I started, it was a big deal to see a girl with an actual jump shot on the basketball court.
Yeah.
Everything else was pushed from the hip before that. But then there was a girl named Jo Schaefer who played at Kamiakin, and this was '87. She actually looked, picture perfect with her jump shot, and she ended up going to the University of Washington. So athletics for girls, in fact, when I first started there was no high school soccer program for girls here. It took a few years to get that going. Now we have one of the best high school girls soccer regions in the state. It was the thing about it that really strikes me is when I remember back in the '70s growing up here, if you wanted to get to a Pasco-Richland basketball game at Daywall Gymnasium, and we all know how big that is, you had to be there before the junior varsity game showed up to get a seat, right? Nowadays, because there's so many entertainment options for kids, whether it's the movies, of course we had those back then, but there's video games, there's all kinds of things for kids to do that the gyms aren't even half full most of the time. Unless
that's a shame, isn't it?
It's a playoff game. It's kind of sad. Same thing. It's the same thing with football games.
Yeah.
The student bodies don't go to them, and everybody has their own interests now.
Yeah.
So.
But it's so much fun in high school.
It is.
I mean, the kids that dress up and just all of that is really great.
Yeah, and there's a lot of specialization too with kids nowadays, and it's year round. The days of the three-sport athlete are very far and few between. There's not too many of them left.
I know, and that's a shame.
Yeah.
Let's take this caller and add him to our conversation. Hi, you're on the air with us today.
Hi, Jeff. This is Lon. How are you today?
Hello, Lon. How are you?
Good. I'm wondering if you would like to share with the audience the classic line you use to impress your interviewers to promote you from within the Tri-City Herald structure to become the sports editor.
Uh-oh. Is it clean?
Is this one where I'm going to get in trouble with my wife?
Yes.
All right. I had to, and she's going to kill me for saying this, but I was desperate to get the job. I wanted the job, as it was a part-timer at the time, and it was Jack Briggs was the boss, and he says, "Jeff, why should I hire you?" And I said, I know the area, I know all the athletes, I think I could do a job, but Jack, I want this job more than I ever wanted my wife.
Oh my gosh.
I got in trouble for that. I told her, I said,
Well,
I wasn't.
so.
We're still married. It's 30 years.
Yeah, okay, good.
I've been married with her for 30 years. So, and I would never honestly want it more than her, but I had to say something to convince him that I wanted it.
Wow, okay, he got the message.
Yes.
Lon, thanks a lot. Let's take a break here, and when we come back, we have more questions for Jeff Morrow from the Tri-City Herald, including one that I'm kind of curious about, the single most important ingredient to make a local minor league franchise here be successful. We're back in a moment here on Meet in the Middle. Hey, my guest today is Jeff Morrow. He is the sports editor with the Tri-City Herald, and that is coming up until Saturday. Saturday is Jeff's actual last day. He spent 30 years in the sports journalism business. So you have obviously seen a lot as it relates to sports on a business level, athletic level, political level, the whole bit. So, and we've had our trials and tribulations here with minor league franchises. What do you think is the number one thing that a franchise needs in order to be successful in the Tri-Cities?
Well, I went out to a lot of Dust Devils games this year, and the one thing that struck me, and they were honored by Chamber of Commerce for an award, and I think they're on to something. They had a number of interns, but so they had a lot of employees out there. They made sure that fans were having a good time, and they were engaging with them the entire game every night without bar. They were doing it every night, and I think that really struck a chord with a lot of people. They really enjoyed the experience, not just watching what's on the field, but what was going on between innings. Baseball's open to that because there is those breaks between innings to do stuff like that. Whereas for the hockey team or the indoor football team, there's a lot of time in between periods or timeouts for football. But baseball seems to have it cornered right now. If they could take a piece of that from the Dust Devils, both the Americans and the Fever, I think that they'd be on the right page.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, the other games are a heck of a lot more fast-paced
Yes,
than
they are.
baseball.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, but we have some beautiful venues here, that's for sure. What do you think local sports readers want from a local newspaper? And I'm sure they tell you all the time.
They do. When you have a print product too, it's kind of a mixed bag because let me be clear, if I ever leave an NFL box score out of the paper,
Yeah.
I get phone calls.
Mm-hmm.
If I leave a Major League box score out of the papers, I get phone calls. But still, the bread and butter is going to be that local coverage because that's what we can give people that they can't get anywhere else.
Right, so the high schools or
The high
our
schools
local teams here.
Any newspaper person will tell you that in sports, that the high schools are the bread and butter of any sports department.
Yeah. So today, information is essentially instantaneously available.
Mm-hmm.
And so, where do you build a niche for the newspaper now that we can go so many different places to get the score? I don't have to wait till tomorrow or, I know right away. What can a newspaper do that others don't?
Well,
and a local newspaper.
We're doing it now because we have to. We have to be more immediate. If you hear anybody from McClatchy tell you we're not really a newspaper organization, we're a media organization now. I remember the days I kind of pine for them sometimes. Is back in the late '80s, early '90s, where I knew I had a great story that was going to run the next morning, and I knew that Uretsky on KNU didn't have it. I knew that Jim Hall at KPR didn't have it. I knew that Frank Murray and later Michael McDonald at K1A didn't have it.
Yeah.
And so I would watch the newscasts at night, see that they didn't have it, and I'd get all excited, and I'd go to bed happy, and I'd wake up the next morning, and all hell would break loose because I had beaten them. It was like a great little competition. That's gone. That's gone now. It's immediacy. And so, I tell people when I'm covering a high school football game or a basketball game, and I say, okay, I start with my regular newspaper interview. When I get done, I say, now I need a video clip of you because we're doing video now on our websites. We have to stay up on top of the competition if we're going to get those young 20-somethings, 30-somethings who really don't pick up a print product anymore. They're going to look at our website or they're going to look on their phones and they're going to see that stuff, and that's how we're going to keep them engaged. And then, of course, you have to tweet it during the whole game. So I'll be tweeting every time there's a score change in the Fever game. Same thing with hockey, baseball. If there's a score change there, I will tweet that out. And and of course my observations during the game. So it's a really, you're juggling a lot of stuff just to go out and cover a game where all you have to do is just sit there, maybe have a soda, the old days.
Yeah.
So
take a few notes.
Yes,
and
exactly.
then have an hour and a half maybe or so to write the story afterwards. Wow.
That's right, yeah.
Things are changing dramatically. Here's a question that I've got for you. Hey, and by the way, if you out in the audience have a question, 547-8726. And I know it gets asked a lot, it gets kicked around. I'm just kind of curious your opinion on it. Athletes as role models. There have been, a lot of discussion on both sides that they're performing a job and their job is not to be a role model to a 10-year-old. But what is your thought on that?
Well, we're talking about professional athletes especially.
Yeah.
We all know what Charles Barkley said, that he's not a role model,
right.
But that's your parents' job. But I think if you're a professional athlete, it's not a right given to you. It's a privilege that you should be able to be playing the sport you love and get paid for it. So I think with that comes a lot of extra duties, and one of them is, keep your nose clean. Russell Wilson's a perfect example. I mean, every Tuesday he's at Children's Hospital
Well,
in Seattle.
he's the poster boy for that one
He
side.
he
Absolutely.
really is, yes.
But he has teammates that represent the other side.
Exactly. You know, and I understand. We forget that these guys are 20-something-year-old athletes with an incredible amount of money given them. So they sometimes don't know how to handle it. I think that, yeah, you have to be a role model.
Yeah, I like that too. So coming up, I think it's Christmas Day. The movie Concussion comes out.
Yes.
And obviously there has been a tremendous amount of conversation these days about concussions, and certainly children's sports as it relates to football and concussions has modified their game a lot. What do you think that the whole issue of concussions, how's that going to change the future of football? Any thoughts on that?
I think the NFL has, I mean, they're trying to get there. I don't think they didn't want to go there. They didn't want to address this. It just, you know, but you see guys like Junior Seau kill himself. Dave Grayson, you know, the Bears guy, they're desperate. They're, you know, when I was in high school, we were taught to lead with our helmets when we tackled. That was back in the late 70s. And I told you off the air that I actually had a concussion when I was a freshman from leading with my helmet. And so it's...
And you went back in the game. You wanted to get back in the game.
Yeah.
That was the deal then.
That was the deal back then.
Yeah.
It was like, shake it off, you'll be okay. So things have changed a lot, and I think we're getting there. I think we've still got a long ways to go. You know, the spearing. It's funny is everything that I did in high school. I told my staff this. Everything I did in high school during football is now considered illegal. Yes.
And they had less, padding and equipment than. All right.
You're seeing a lot of papers all over the country doing this, where they cut those costs, and this is the economics nowadays for a lot of things, so that there are regional hubs that are printing papers. So Yakima not only prints our paper, they print their own paper, but they also print the Ellensburg paper, and I wouldn't be surprised if they add some more to that. So and so yeah, those are things that are beyond our control. Right. The Yakima printing press is a lot newer, and so it hasn't had as much work to it as ours was. Ours was originally brought down from Anchorage, and back in the early '90s, and so the press crew that we had there too, they were great. They would catch mistakes on deadline, and so we could make the changes. And now it's we send the page to Yakima, and that's it. We don't see it again until the next morning. So it's a tough go. It really is.
But it's just
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, I know. This is one of the, the That's we try to get as much on anything that's local. By the time we push the button at 11 p.m., we put that on our website. All that stuff is on there already. But as far as you're talking about the actual picture of the page on the website. Yeah. Right. Yeah, that I couldn't answer that for you. I don't know why that happens. Right. Sure. Yes. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Okay.
And I complained to them, wrote a letter about it, and thank you for your response. Haven't done it.
You know what? I have a desk about 2 desks away from the webmaster. I will bring this back to him, and I will threaten him and see what he can do.
And
'Cause
I
other
want
than
you
that,
to do all of that before Saturday,
yes,
please,
I'll do
Jeff.
it by Saturday. Yeah. Other than that, Steve, I don't know what else to tell you on that. That's way above my pay grade.
Yeah. Seems that
Yeah.
they could fix that.
Yeah.
Jeff Morrow, it's been just a delight talking with you. I wish you the very best in the future. And you know what? I just want to make sure that you know that you are appreciated in the Tri-Cities here
Thank
for
you.
all of these years of telling sports stories. Sports is really important to a lot of people's lives.
It is. It
Yeah.
is. It's it gives them a little bit of an escape from
Yes.
what they're doing in their daily lives. So
Yeah.
thank you.
All right, Jeff, thanks. Hey, we'll be back in a moment and talk to the Senate Majority Leader. Stay with us. This is Meet in the Middle on Monday.